Do, 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 do. So if I
Huzzah!
can find out, it's in the Hyatt Regency Aurora, Denver. I wonder who. I mean, shoot. Hi, interwebs. Hi, interwebs of the future.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah. Someone
Um,
someday will find these files and be like, score?
this one is entitled Once More with Wi-Fi because my Wi-Fi is working.
Yes.
We might actually get to the book this time.
Oh, that would be delightful. How has your week gone?
It's good. I got my nails did, and I don't know if you can tell, but they have little like 3D elements on them, and they're very fun to like mess with.
Fidget nails, huh?
They're they are fidget nails. That is exactly what they are, yes.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
Yeah. I interacted with at least one teacher at the con who wanted to be notified if I ever had enough stock um to start helping schools out with some periodic table of elementals energy because it would be such a good learning tool. And then we waxed eloquent about how important a good teacher is who actually knows how to deal with kids who learn kinetically and I got to tell stories about my great teachers. Like I had no idea I was neurodivergent because they just accommodated for it without any fuss. like,
Mm-hmm.
like here, finger knit with this ugly yarn, child, and now we'll learn about the planets. It was just, damn it. These days, the school probably wouldn't be able to afford the ugly yarn,
No, they probably wouldn't.
right? It is a
Fund
trouble.
schools.
Fund schools. More books, larger school libraries. Here's what you do because bad guys ban books, but good guys encourage reading. So you just make the library so big that the kids never find the books you don't want them to read. Lots and lots of books. Just bury them in other books. So can't find the tree for the forest, and then the children are safe. I know we'll never have an audience that's conservative, but that's an argument I'd like to pitch to someone in that position.
Well, if you ever run across anyone that you need to make that argument to, let me know how it goes.
I will.
In the meanwhile, what you working on today?
I will be working on these. I've started doing these strips of faces. There's sort of they're going to be augmenting the pages of the Facebook printouts that I'm doing in my This Is How We Process book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very stream of consciousness painting. You paint some rough faces and then you go back in and kind of refine them and then you go back in and make them a little more and then eventually you have just a sort of bookmark of lots of faces. And that's what it takes a while, but it's worth it and it's fun. I'm not too pleased with this one. I've got one started. I might
Mm-hmm.
ignore it and do the one next to it for a bit because I've got a bunch taped down. I am about to finish up the third section of Conversations with Cracks and post it to my Patreon too. So that is a thing. That is a crazy thing. We're chugging ever closer to the 5-year anniversary of being all clear, and I'm like, ah,
God, that's true. That's in what,
March,
like a month? Yeah,
2 months. Yeah, a
months.
month. Well, less than a month till the anniversary of the surgery, and then, um, yeah, and then I think it was February 9th, somewhere in there was the surgery.
Somewhere in there, because I know I had to take off work and it was the week of Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And I was like, haha, don't care. Bye.
But let's see if
Um,
Valentine's Day was Wednesday because Sonia died on Tuesday. So that was the 13th. And my surgery was on Friday. 9.
mm,
Yep, 9th.
oof.
Wicked. And March 21st is the day that Srivastava said, "You're done. Go home. Go away. What are your plans for the spring?" Like,
Which is Of all the questions for your oncologist to ask you, that has to be the best.
You're
What
right.
what are your plans?
What are
Like,
you
oh
gonna do?
good. I,
They're all done.
I
And
should
I
I should take
distinctly
those.
remember because she's like, "Why do you look nervous?" And I'm like, "Because they took a piece of my liver to biopsy during the surgery because it was looked suspicious." And she looked at my chart and went, "Yeah, that was nothing. You're done."
Eh.
Yay! All right.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
so big project. I would love to get as many faces as possible so that I don't have to repeat, but I'll probably have to repeat at some point.
can we talk
Where
about how I inadvertently matched my book here?
Ah,
I did not realize I was doing that.
what is that? What's on your shirt?
Oh, it's Lady Justice, which is a local brewery. They did a shirt that has like this Art Deco jukebox situation.
I
So
love
that's
that
what
art
this is.
jukebox.
It's a
Fingal
great
and
shirt. I love
Melian
it.
is where we're at. So just so that's where my ribbon
Yes.
is.
That is also where my skull bookmark is. Because I was all set up to read, and then my Wi-Fi was like, "Ha, it's too cold," and I was like, "I agree, but but now it's cold and I have no Wi-Fi. What the hell am I gonna do?"
I'm like, aren't electronics supposed to like the cold? Got
Right?
wrong
Yeah, no,
electronics.
the whole time we were in that cold snap, my Wi-Fi was just going out for like hours at a time randomly. So I actually I read a lot of books and I did some cross stitch because
Even
that was what I could do.
even our windows, even our brand new $50,000 windows iced up on the inside. That was a
Hmm.
nasty cold snap.
Yeah, I had ice on the inside of my windows too, and the heat in this apartment just was like, no, like could not keep up. I had my little space heater going, but you know one of the best purchases I've ever made.
Yeah.
I got on like sometime last year. I was on shopgoodwill.com and you can get 100% wool like throw blankets for like
Ooh,
25 bucks because
nice.
someone donated them to Goodwill and whatever. And so I got one of those for my couch. That thing is awesome.
Nice. Yeah, wool is you can't get cold through wool. It is marvelous. I
Mm-hmm.
approve. Good
Yep. I
purchase.
actually have I actually have two. I have one for my couch and then I have one for my office chair that I use while I'm working. So good things, good things.
Good things. I'm glad you stayed warm enough. We were what the windows may have iced up, but they kept the place draft free enough that Avi was running around in his underwear like he does, and I was like,
Fantastic.
right? Would have been fantastic when he was 6.
Well, I meant the fact that it was not drafty. I mean,
Yeah.
I have neutral feelings on the subject of your son's choice of dress. Speaking of children,
Good.
by the way, Ellery is going to be a year old in 2 weeks.
God damn it. I wanted to make her a freaking book quilt. But I've been painting. Everyone understands this, right?
Everyone understands this. There is no concern about that. Honestly, I don't think they have room for anything right now. They're in a very small apartment.
Yeah. Fair enough.
As are we all. Well, anyways.
Some of us are not, but we have 8 people. 9? 8. 8 people on a
Yes.
sick day. Do. What? What'd I do? Where are you? There we go.
I mean, I'm here. Where are you?
My thumb hit one of the window buttons on my tablet. So. All right, tell me of Thingol and Melian.
Well,
Well,
Melian was a Maya of the race of the Falar. I don't know why I'm saying this like it's gossip. Although it kind of is.
it kind of is.
Okay, so
worries.
get this. She dwelt in the gardens of Lorien.
Oh yeah. Lorien Gardens got it. I'm in. I'm hip.
And among all his people there were none more beautiful than Melian, nor more wise, nor more skilled in the songs of enchantment.
Jeez,
It
you
is
crazy.
told
She's a triple threat.
she's the whole package here.
Yeah.
It is told that the Valar would leave their works, and the birds of Valinor their mirth, that the bells of Valmar were silent and the fountains ceased to flow, when at the mingling of the lights Melian sang in Lorien.
The fountains, the fucking fountains.
Which
Like,
sounds kind of inconvenient. Like you're trying to get water and you're like, oh god damn it, Melian's singing again. I gotta wait.
uh, and also, all of those things could be said about a really bad singer. Like,
Indeed.
and the
Yeah,
birds
if
left. And
if everyone has stopped doing anything and also the birds stop singing because you're like la 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 la, it doesn't necessarily
oh, okay. Too much fun.
mean. Nightingales went always with her, and she taught them their song. And she loved the deep shadows of the great trees. She was akin before the world was made to Yavanna herself. And in that time when the Quendi awoke beside the waters of of Quivianen, Quivianen,
Quivienen.
Quivianen. Thank you. I'm like I must have said this word before, but I'm realizing it's only come up during your reading time so far.
Ha!
In that time when the Quendi awoke beside the waters of Quivianen, she departed from Valinor and came to the Hitherlands. And there she filled the silence of Middle Earth before the dawn with her voice and the voices of her birds. Now, when their journey was near its end, as has been told, the people of the Teleri rested long in East Beleriand, beyond the river Gelion. And at that time, many of the Noldor still lay to the westward, in those forests that were afterwards named Neldereth and Region. My brain is like, region! No.
No.
Elwë, lord of the Teleri, went often through the great woods to seek out Finwë, his friend, in the dwellings of the Noldor. And it chanced on a time that he came alone to the starlit wood of Nan Almoth, and there suddenly he heard the song of nightingales. Then an enchantment fell on him, and he stood still. And afar off, beyond the voices of the Lomelindi, he heard the voice of Melian, and it filled all his heart with wonder and desire. He forgot then utterly all his people and all the purposes of his mind, and following the birds under the shadow of the trees, he passed deep into Nan Almoth and was lost. But he came at last to a glade open to the stars, and there Melian stood, and out of the darkness he looked at her, and the light of Aman was in her face.
Ooh. Light of a
She spoke
mind.
She spoke no word, but being filled with love, Elwë came to her and took her hand. And straightway a spell was laid on him, so that they stood thus while long years were measured by the wheeling stars above them. And the trees of Nan Elmoth grew tall and dark before they spoke any word. This is like you picture anyone else in the situation being like, guys,
Guys, hey,
guys, hello.
hello. Can we, hey? Yeah.
Like,
And so this is a recurring theme that Tolkien wrote because when he first met his lady love, whose first name escapes me at the moment, he was like, oh my god, she's so perfect and wonderful. And his mentor, who was raising him, was like, don't you dare even think about girls until you're done with school. 4 years. That's what you've got. You don't touch her, don't look at her, don't speak to her, no nothing. And so he didn't, because he respected that guy so much. And 4 years later, like the day he graduated, he showed up on her porch at midnight to be like, I've been in love with you this whole time. And so she broke off her engagement to somebody else and married him. But that's why, like, because Beren and Luthien have a similar thing. Like, he sees her and boom, he can't speak for years. And you're like, can't is a heavy word, dude.
Can't is a heavy word. Like, also, dude, do you smell burnt toast? Like,
Yeah.
are you having a stroke? What is happening?
And the birds are tweeting and they stand there forever. It's very Disney.
Mm-hmm. But also, okay, so here's the next part. Thus Elwë's folk who sought him found him not. And Olwe took the kingship of the Teleri and departed, as is told hereafter. So that there's people looking for him in the woods, and they can't find him because he's standing there staring at Melian for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, for 7, right? It was 7 years they stood thus? Something like that?
Um, it it doesn't. I don't think it says.
It's a lot.
It says long years, and the trees grew tall and dark before they spoke any word. So that sounds like decades.
Decades. For decades, they stood there. Unable to say a word because they both, well, she looked amazing. I don't know what she saw in him.
It's not mentioned what she saw in him. Um,
He's
and
great,
Elway
he's
Singolo.
great. Let's talk about the woman.
And Elway Singolo came never again across the sea to Valinor so long as he lived, and Melian returned not thither while their realm together lasted. But of her there came among both elves and men a strain of the Ainur, who were with Iluvatar before Ea. In after days he became a king renowned, and his people were all the Eldar of Beleriand, and the Sindar they were named, the Grey Elves, the Elves of the Twilight. And King Greymantle was he, Eleuthingol in the tongue of that land. And Melian was his queen, wiser than any child of Middle-earth. And their hidden halls were in Menegroth, the thousand caves in Doria. Great power Melian lent to Thingol, who was himself great among the Eldar, for he alone of all the Sindar had seen with his own eyes the trees in the day of their flowering. And king though he was of Lumanyar, he was not counted among the Moriquendi, but with the elves of the light, mighty upon Middle-earth. And of the love of Thingol and Melian there came into the world the fairest of all the children of Iluvatar that was, or shall ever be.
Well, shit. Or shall ever be. Thanks a lot. That's
right? Like, hey, what are we, chopped liver? Come on.
apparently so. You're not fair. You bored of a demigoddess? No.
I mean, I don't know. Have we asked Mom specifically?
No, but she wouldn't admit to it even if she was, so we'll never find out.
True. Cat, she's being very cute, but she's doing that thing where she unerringly found the exact pressure point to put all her weight on.
Oh no.
Okay, there we go. Ow, ow, ow. Okay. How do they bend the laws of the conservation of mass thus such that they can put 5,000 pounds of pressure on one tiny paw? Chapter 5. Also, okay, this is not discussed in the book, but you have seen the person of your dreams. You walk towards them, you take their hand, you stand there staring at each other for years in awe. What's the first thing you say when you finally regain the power of speech?
My nose itches.
Maybe it wasn't even like anything they said. Maybe one of their stomachs growled and that broke the silence.
Right?
Because I feel like that's what would happen to me if I'd been standing there for, well, significantly less time than that.
Yeah.
One time I was in a wedding and I was a bridesmaid, and it was a more like an early in the day weddings, and I hadn't really eaten breakfast because I started getting ready at like 6 and I wasn't hungry yet.
Right.
So middle of the ceremony, my stomach starts growling so loud.
Oh no.
So I started fake crying to cover the sound of my stomach because I thought it would be less disruptive if it was me crying.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. Think of something.
I'm like standing there, hair shellacked with hairspray, bridesmaid dress, like whole 9 yards, just like.
Oh dear.
Chapter 5 of Eldamar and the Princes of the Eldalie.
Those guys.
Yeah. In time, the hosts of the Vanyar and the Noldor came to the last western shores of the Hitherlands. In the north, these shores, in the ancient days after the battle of the powers, bent ever westward, until in the northernmost parts of Arda, northern Marts, what?
Northern Marts. Northern Marts. Yeah.
Just mouth going faster than the brain. In the northernmost parts of Arda,
Yep.
only a narrow sea divided Aman, upon which Valinor was built, from the hitherlands.
I
But this
always
narrow
picture the Bering Strait right there.
Mm-hmm. But this narrow sea was filled with grinding ice because of the violence of the frosts of Melkor. Therefore, Orome did not lead the hosts of the Eldalia into the far north, but brought them to the fair lands about the river Sirion that afterwards were named Beleriand. And from those shores whence first the Eldar looked in fear and wonder on the sea, there stretched an ocean, wide and dark and deep, between them and the mountains of Aman. Now Ulmo, by the counsel of the Valar, came to the shores of Middle-earth, and spoke with the Eldar who waited there, gazing on the dark waves. And because of his words and the music which he made for them on his horns of shell, their fear of the sea was turned rather to desire. Therefore Ulmo uprooted an island, which long had stood alone amid the sea, far from either shore, since the tumults of the fall of Iluin. And with the aid of his servants he moved it, as it were a mighty ship, and anchored it in the bay of Belar, into which Sirion poured his water.
I do
Then the
kind of love
Vanyar,
how we're going to throw away everything that's ever been known about like geology and how islands work and like screw it. This is mythology, bitches. Does
well, yeah, I mean, they're gods. What are we going to say? Like, and then he said, well, you better build a boat.
right?
No.
No,
He brought him an
that's the
island.
Old Testament.
Yeah, that's a different mythology. Then the Vanyar and the Noldor embarked upon that isle and were drawn over the sea, and came at last to the long shores beneath the mountains of Aman, and they entered Valinor and were welcomed to its bliss. But the eastern horn of the island, which was deep grounded in the shoals off the mouths of Sirion, was broken asunder and remained behind, and that, it is said, was the Isle of Balar, to which afterwards Ose often came.
Okay, all
But
right.
sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's where
Pay
that island
attention
came from. Good to
yeah, that's yay.
know.
I feel like there is going to be a quiz. Like, what island does Ose often come to?
Oh my god.
Broke off of the thing.
Discussion questions at the end of the chapter, like a middle school textbook.
Oh god, I
Ugh.
hate those.
The problem with those, like, I get why they have them there, but you don't get good discussions.
No.
It's not like people actually put any thought into them.
Yeah, I don't think they were paid enough to. So you're left with these really kind of crap questions that just sap your love of the story or of thinking in general.
Right. Well, and I meant the people who are, the students and teachers who are having the discussion, like, don't bother to actually be like, why do you think this question is important? They're just like, and the answer on page 39, it says that blah.
Right. But I think that if you leave students, at least a certain kind of student, like without any forced discussion question, they'll come up with their own that are better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
the problem is the other kind of student will just not read the text at all.
Well, there's no helping some people.
Anyways, so we have established the geography here. There will not be a quiz.
Yay!
But the Teleri remained still in Middle-earth, for they dwelt in East Beleriand, far from the sea. And they heard not the summons of Ulmo until too late, and many searched still for Elwë their lord, and without him they were unwilling to depart. But he was standing around silently staring at some woman in a forest, and they couldn't find him.
Right. You want to picture them being like, oh, but what if it was more like, die?
I mean, I think from the inside it felt like, oh, and from the outside it looked like, like, if they had found him, they would have been like, what are you doing?
The fuck, dude?
Which is also what I would have said when he reemerged. Like, we didn't get to go to heaven because you were standing around.
It's cool. In heaven, they had a freaking issues later. They didn't have to deal with
That's
Feanor.
that's true. They also didn't have to deal with the whole giant spider situation at
Right?
that particular time. Anyways, but that is a spoiler. Da, 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 da. They wouldn't leave without Elwë, who was going. Durr. When they learned that Ingwe and Finwë and their peoples were gone, then many of the Teleri pressed on to the shores of Beleriand, and dwelt thereafter near the mouths of Sirion, in longing for their friends that had departed. And they took Olwe, Elwë's brother, to be their king. Long they remained by the coasts of the western sea, and Ose and Rhiannon came to them and befriended them. And Ose instructed them, sitting upon a rock near to the margin of the land. And of him they learned all manner of sea lore and sea music.
Now
He
he's the
taught them
one who
shanties.
occasionally has tantrums that fuck up the coastline, right?
I think so, yes.
And she's his
So,
wife that like keeps him in check.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thus it came to be that the Teleri, who were from the beginning lovers of water, and the fairest singers of all the elves, were after enamored of the seas, and their songs were filled with the sound of waves upon the shore. What shall we do with a drunken sailor?
Oh, shit. Oh, there was a shanty that made the rounds just like last year.
That was 2020, which was 4 years ago, but you're thinking of the Wellerman.
I was thinking of the Wellerman. I can picture the Teleri. There was once was a ship that went to sea. The name of the ship was that they wouldn't have called it the Billy of Tea. What would this?
They would have called it that, but in Quendi or something. Soon may the Valanin come. Yes. When many years had passed, Ulmo hearkened to the prayers of the Noldor and of Finwë their king, who grieved at their long sundering from the Teleri, and besought him to bring them to Aman if they would come. And most of them proved now willing indeed. But great was the grief of Ose when Ulmo returned to the coasts of Beleriand to bear them away to Valinor. For
No, mine.
his care was for the seas of Middle-earth and the shores of the Hitherlands, and he was ill pleased that the voices of the Teleri should be heard no more in his domain. Dude, those are my friends. You can't just take them.
Taking my friends off to freaking heaven. Ugh.
Some he persuaded to remain, and those were the Faladrim, the elves of the Falas, who in after days had dwellings at the havens of Britholmbar and Eglarest, the first mariners in Middle-earth, and the first makers of ships.
Don't
Círdan the
tell me that
shipwright
those were the
was
people.
their
Are those
lord.
the people that fucking Prince Imrahil were descended from?
Maybe? Does it say that he's descended from the Falas?
Yes. Well, maybe not the Falas, but he's just there's like supposed to be elves in the ancestry of his people somehow, somewhere, for some reason.
I bet those are the elves, which means that Imrahil is related to Círdan the shipwright.
Oh, okay. That makes him a little less uncool.
It kind of does, doesn't it? You're like, oh, okay. All right. Maybe next time I read this, I won't make fun of you quite as hard, Imrahil.
I still will. He wants to be a main character. He shows up during the second part of the third act and wants to be a main character. And I'm like, no, you didn't earn that. You didn't travel with us. Fuck you.
As we have said many times, who the hell is Imrahil?
Who the hell is Imrahil? Yeah.
Needs to go on a shirt someday. Anyways,
right.
The kinsfolk and friends of Elwë Singolo also remained in the Hitherlands, seeking him yet, though they would fain have departed to Valinor in the light of the trees if Ulmo and Olwe had been willing to tarry longer.
Wait 1 more week. We'll find him, we swear.
Elway, come out. We need to leave. The bus is
The
leaving.
bus is going away. Away.
But Olwe would be gone, and at last the main host of the Teleri embarked upon the isle, and Ulmo drew them far away. Then the friends of Elwë were left behind, and they called themselves Eglath, the Forsaken People, because they were a little dramatic.
Yeah, okay, that's very emo right there.
They dwelt in the woods and hills of Beleriand rather than by the sea, which filled them with sorrow. But the desire of Aman was ever in their hearts. But when Elwë awoke from his long trance, he came forth from Nan Elmoth with Melion, and they dwelt thereafter in the woods in the midst of the land. Greatly though he had desired to see again the light of the trees, in the face of Melion he beheld the light of Aman as in an unclouded mirror, and in that light he was content. His people gathered about him in joy, and they were amazed. For fair and noble as he had been, now he appeared as it were a lord of the Maiar, his hair as grey silver, tallest of all the children of Iluvatar, and a high doom was before him.
So wait, she fixed him?
What's that?
Well, the love
it doesn't.
Of a great woman made him even better than he was before.
Or, to put it another way, he met her, stood there staring at her for like a decade. His hair went completely white, and he came out with like a doom laid upon him.
A doom, like you said. Yes. All right. So yes. She's a banshee, is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it love, or did she scare him to death? Not clear.
Which?
Now Ose followed after the host of Olwe, and when they were come to the Bay of Eldamar, which is Elvenhome, he called to them, and they knew his voice, and begged Ulmo to stay their voyage. And Ulmo granted their request, and at his bidding Ose made fast the island and rooted it to the foundations of the sea. Ulmo did this the more readily, for he understood the hearts of the Teleri, and in the council of the Valar he had spoken against the summons, thinking that it were better for the Quendi to remain in Middle-earth.
Yeah.
The Valar were little pleased to learn what he had done, and Finwë grieved when the Teleri came not, and yet more when he learned that Elwë was forsaken, and knew that he should not see him again, unless it were in the halls of Mandos. But the island was not moved again, and stood there alone in the Bay of Eldamar, and it was called Tol Eressëa, the Lonely Isle. There the Teleri abode as they wished under the stars of heaven, and yet within sight of Aman and the deathless shore.
Hey,
And by that long sojourn apart in the Lonely Isle was caused the sundering of their speech from that of the Vanyar and the Noldor. They were there so long they invented a whole new language for themselves.
which we don't do, you know?
Well, we do, but it's over generations. They're the same people that just stopped talking in the same language.
I love that. Like, I'm bored with this. Let's use some slang. The ones that in Valinor are like, what's this slang? We're not allowed to use slang. You don't talk like that around gods.
Right. It's just that, like, they start talking in increasingly confusing inside jokes and memes.
Yes.
It's like that episode of Star Trek where everything is referential. You know what I'm talking about?
That's the one. Yes. The
Darmok and Jalad
Tanagra.
Yes.
Yeah. Elwë and Melion in the forest, you know?
Which is slang for being really selfish and not listening when people are trying to call you for dinner.
or really into whatever you're doing so that you forget everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh man, I am so sorry I missed the party. I was just Thingol and Melion and in the forest, you know? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oblivious.
To these being the Vanyar and the Noldor,
Yes, them.
the Valar had given a land and a dwelling place. Even among the radiant flowers of the tree-lit gardens of Valinor, they longed still at times to see the stars, and therefore a gap was made in the great walls of the Pelori. And there in a deep valley that ran down to the sea, the Eldar raised a high green hill. Tuna, it was called.
It was called Tuna. Because there
Tolkien.
are only so many syllables that the human tongue can make. So we called our sacred hill Tuna.
Tuna. I'm like, Tolkien, you had to have known. Like, you knew what tuna was.
Well, he'd already given up his gnomes, right? He wanted to call the Noldor gnomes, and he wasn't allowed to. Everybody was like, that's dumb. So he was like, fine, I'll call them something else. But I'm keeping Tuna.
I'm just like, I had a tuna melt for lunch. This is a weird experience for me to be feeling.
Oh, and there's a city. They built a city called something on Tuna. What the hell was that?
I don't know. We'll get there. From the west, the light of the trees fell upon it, and its shadow lay ever eastward. And to the east it looked towards the bay of Elvenhome and the lonely isle and the shadowy seas. Then through the Calasyria, the pass of light, the radiance of the blessed realm streamed forth, kindling the dark waves to silver and gold, and it touched the lonely isle, and its western shore grew green and fair. There bloomed the first flowers that ever were east of the mountains of Aman. Upon
Wait,
the
so
crown
no
of
flowers
Tuna,
anywhere else? So it's like dinosaur era,
yeah, it must be because there's trees, but no
right?
flowers. So yeah, it would be like that, the Cretaceous with the really big ferns and stuff.
Nice. Oh, I want to picture a Cretaceous Middle Earth. The Fingal and Melian is standing there while while the T-Rexes lurch and sneeze around them.
Being lightly sniffed by a brontosaurus.
Yes.
Upon the crown of Tuna. It doesn't get better the more times you say it.
No, it absolutely does. Tell me about the crown of Tuna.
The city of the elves was built there.
There it is.
The white walls and terraces of Tirion.
Tyrion upon Tuna.
Tirion upon Tuna. And the highest of the towers of that city was the Tower of Ingwe, Mindon Eldalieva, whose silver lamp shone far out into the mists of the sea. Few are the ships of mortal men that have seen its slender beam. In Tirion upon Tuna, the Vanyar and the Noldor dwelt long in fellowship. And you can't even call it like Tuna because the accent is over the U.
It's Tuna.
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 That's not better. Hey, dude, you want some tuna? Shall we go to the crown of Tuna?
Offer it to the short Lannister first. Let's see what happens when you get Tyrion on Tuna. We made our own entertainment in those days.
And since, of all things in Valinor, they loved most the white tree, Yavanna made for them a tree like to a lesser image of Telperion, save that it did not give light of its own being. Galathilion it was named in the Sindarin tongue. This tree was planted in the courts.
She made them a miniature one. Like,
I know, right? How cute!
Like a pyramid in Las Vegas.
Much nicer than that. The Luxor is kind of weird inside.
Fair enough. Are you saying Tyrion upon Tuna isn't?
I have never been to the crown of Tuna, so I can't say.
Indeed.
This tree was planted in the courts beneath the Mindon, and there flourished, and its seedlings were many in Eldamar. Of these, one was afterwards planted in Tol Eressëa, and it prospered there, and was named Celeborn. Thence came in the fullness of time, as is elsewhere told, Nimloth, the white tree of Numenor.
I fucking love that all the trees get names.
I think it's interesting that the tree's named Celeborn. Like, is Galadriel's husband named after the tree?
Oh
He
yeah,
must be.
100%. It must be, unless Celeborn is like the Middle Earth Dave. Named the tree Dave. Common like that, you know.
This is the White Lady of the Woods, Galadriel, and her husband, Dave.
Dave. No, he
I
was
gotta be
totally. He was totally.
as a yep. And honestly, like as a queer person, that is often what meeting straight couples is like.
Like, really?
Exactly. You're like, Dave? Really?
Sure.
What brought you to get together with Dave? Galadriel, White Lady of the Woods, fairest in all the realm of Middle Earth.
Yep. So, are we at 8? Is that almost? We've got 5. All right.
Yeah, we've got 5. So I think we've got time for one more paragraph.
Huzzah.
Manwë and Varda loved most the Vanyar, the fair elves, but the Noldor were beloved of Aule, and he and his people came often among them. Great became their knowledge and their skill, yet even greater was their thirst for more knowledge, and in many things they soon surpassed their teachers. They were changeful in speech, for they had great love of words, and sought ever to find names more fit for all things that they knew or imagined. And it came to pass that the masons of the house of Finwë, quarrying in the hills after stone, for they delighted in the building of high towers, first discovered the earth gems, and brought them forth in countless myriads. And they devised tools for the cutting and shaping of gems, and carved them in many forms. They hoarded them not, but gave them freely, and by their labor enriched all Valinor. The Noldor afterwards came back to Middle-earth, and this tale tells mostly of their deeds. Therefore the names and kinship of their princes may here be told, in that form which these names later bore in the tongue of the elves of Beleriand. Oh god, we're into the begats.
Yep.
Finwë was king of the Noldor.
Yeah, got it.
The sons of Finwë were Feanor and Fingolfin
Yep.
and Finarfin.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to make it real easy on y'all.
But also, like, okay, one of them lost the name lottery. Because you have, like, Feanor, Fingolfin, Finarfin.
Arfin. Yep.
I'm Finarfin from Tuna.
Shut up. You can't not say it in a Minnesota accent, eh? I'm Finarfin.
I'm Finarfin.
I'm Finarfin.
Oh, nice to meet you there. I'm Finarfin.
Son of Finwë, don't you know?
But the mother of Feanor was Miriel Serinde, whereas the mother of Fingolfin and Finarfin was Indis of the Vanyar.
Oh, yeah.
So Finwë was a player.
No, he was a widower.
Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, my father was Finwë, and my mother was Indis of the Vanyar, don't you know?
Don't you know? Good old Indus of the Vanyar. Good mom. Sends me a fruitcake every so often.
What are we?
No.
Feanor was the
Australian.
mightiest. We're definitely not Australian, no. I meant you and I. Like, what are we doing here? What are
Finish
we?
the paragraph. Finish the paragraph.
I mean, I actually was at the end of a paragraph, but we'll do one more.
Okay, cool.
Feanor was the mightiest in skill of word and of hand, more learned than his brothers. His spirit burned as a flame. Fingolfin was the strongest, the most steadfast, and the most valiant. Finarfin was the fairest. And I can't not say it like that. And the most
I'm
wise of
Finarfin
heart.
the Fairer. You may have heard of me.
They tell me I'm the fairest.
They tell me I am.
And afterwards he was a friend of the sons of Olwe, lord of the Teleri, and had to wife Earwin, the swan maiden of Alquilonde, Olwe's daughter.
Okay.
There we
Lucky
go.
Finarfin.
Lucky Finarfin.
Because the Swan Maiden, she's pretty badass. She can break your arm with a beat of her wing.
I was just thinking that. Swans are great parents, don't you know?
Oh, that's not the right accent.
No, not really, no. But you know what?
Oh,
It
yeah.
works.
So that kind of thing. Because it'll say across the top, it'll be like from the book of faces, and then there will be faces because I'm that kind of a person. I've got some done that I'm
Oh, I think I saw those on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. This one gives me serious like Uncanny Valley vibes, but I don't care.
I think there's a bit of Uncanny Valley / Brian Froudy labyrinthiness in the whole stack of faces situation in general.
It's true. It's hard to do a stack of faces and not have it feel proudly. And I am okay with that. There will never be a time when I'm not okay with being compared to Brian Froud, even if it was like, gosh, you know who could do this better?
Right, because it's like even if someone's saying, "Hey, Brian Froud could have done that better," they're saying that you're in his genre.
Right?
It's the whole worst pirate I've ever heard of thing. You have heard of me.
Heard of me. Yes, awesome. Oh God, I hope Finarfin has lots of good adventures and that we don't have to just hear about fucking Feanor, but I'm pretty sure we do.
Yeah. I have a bad feeling we're going to have a lot of Feanorians coming up.
So much Feanor and his 7 sons and their stupid oath. And I know that it's just like the miniature retelling of the Morgoth, whatever Morgoth's original name is. Help me out here. Melkor. He's just Melkor again. Like he's the best. He's the brightest. He's the smartest. He's the goodest. Up, he fell. Saw that coming.
The bigger they come, the harder they fall.
Right? He should have fallen in love with a girl in the woods and stood there like.
It worked for Elway.
It did. Mostly.
But it didn't work for
he actually
Anakin
ends up
Skywalker.
starting a war late. What?
It did not work for Anakin Skywalker, who fell in love with a girl, not really in the woods, but stood there like, and then he also fell. So there's
and he was the best and brightest.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So maybe love won't fix it. That's okay. That's not his job.
I think the moral here is never be the best. Because you know who didn't fall and cause a bunch of drama and deaths and trauma and sadness?
People
Finarfin.
Finarfin! Yeah! As far as we know.
Well, he hasn't done it yet.
He hasn't done it yet.
Oh, all right. I will talk to you later and have so much fun with your faces.
Thank you so much. Yes, I very much look forward to having them done. But also there's a good quality to the exercise. It feels very stream of consciousness. Like there should be a face here with a beard. Any hoozles. And you have fun, stay warm, all that good stuff.
I will do my best.
Cuidado.
Llamas.
Bye.
Bye.